Greetings fellow crafters and VBS directors. This is Nicole again, and I'm here to show you how to make some more sea creatures and corals for VBS decorations or anything else you've got going on. A couple things I wanted to point out. My first video I showed you how to make some sea urchins. Sometimes the spray paint ate away at the styrofoam. Now I have an idea on how to fix that, but I'll show you that in the next video. So stay tuned, and hopefully I'll have that pegged on how to fix the styrofoam eating problem. Another thing I wanted to point out before I get started is I got a glue gun from Home Depot that I absolutely love, by the way. It's got two settings for high and low, depending on what I'm doing. And knowing that I was going to do an excessive amount of crafting, I went and purchased a 90 count box of glue sticks from Home Depot. These are general purpose glue sticks, but I don't regret that purchase in the least, and I'm honest to say I'm about halfway through it. So if you weren't aware of that, I strongly recommend getting this box of glue sticks for all your crafting purposes. So let's get into it. So the next one I have here on crafting is something just more for texture and color, is your egg carton. I cut a standard egg carton into segments and used the hot glue gun to glue them in different angles to kind of bow them out into a semicircle that I'll be covering the sharp corners of my rocks with this fun coral kind of looking monstrosity, I guess you could say. Not necessarily my favorite, but I know the kids will love seeing the texture and the color on the coral set. One of the things I also did when I come up with creating these corals is I took a pair of scissors and I cut the top edges off, and I've been saving them, and I'm thinking of using these as a kind of tall coral later on. I'm not sure if that will work out, but I've been saving them up with all my egg cartons to see if that's something I'll end up doing, so we'll stay tuned for that and see if that ends up working out. The next thing I have is straws. Now on Amazon, they have these large straw packets that have a little bendy portion to it. So you can see here, there's a segment of it that is a bendy straw. Now I've been cutting them at the long point of these bendable sections for a fun sea anemone. As you can see here, I'm starting to glue them together on the sip drinking portion of them to create that sea anemone structure, and I'll just keep building off of that where I'm hot glue gunning these at a low setting, because your fingers are going to be really moving and pushing these together. You don't want to burn yourself, so make sure your glue gun's at a low setting before I spray paint them. I have done one of these already. It looks fantastic. I love it. But I kind of set up where I glued 3 of them at a time, and then I glued them down onto a piece of cardboard and spray painted them in individual little bundles for full coverage, and then I eventually glued them all together. That's very time consuming, so this time I'm going to try gluing them all together first and then spray painting them in one go and see how that works out. Now for the rest of the straw, I figured I would save the pieces up, cut them to different lengths, just for textural visual breakup on the coral rocks. That is just trying to not waste what I have and save the rest of the straws up. So that's another real simple textural visual breakup for some coral rocks that'll be lots of fun. This next one, I'm surprised how well it came out, is this particular coral. Now I used mayonnaise jars. You can, whatever jar you have at home that's plastic, ideally. You don't want to be using any glass on your VBS decorations. If it tips over, you don't want anything risk cutting or breaking. That's also why I haven't been using any aluminum cans or metal pieces on any of these as well. So these are both mayonnaise jars, one large Costco size and one smaller one, with just some Cupcake. I'm not a baker at all. That is not one of my giftings. I don't know what you call these Cupcake covers.
Liners.
Thank you, my sibling who is recording this. Cupcake liners. They're great. So start from your top and work your way down. These are super simple. What you want to do is take one of your cupcake liners first, because they sometimes stick together, so set one in your hand like this. Take your hot glue gun, put a little bit of glue right up against your next section. You don't have to make a nice perfect dollop because you want the paper to grab. Take your cupcake liner, kind of fold it in in a semicircle, and glue it up into that region and kind of press down. So it kind of folds over on itself. That creates a nice little U-shaped ripple, and press, and then just keep repeating and working your way around, and it just makes a really fun textural piece. And then just spray paint it afterward. If you're worried about the breeze or wind, if you spray paint outside, which I always recommend spray painting outside, just tack a little bit of hot glue in 2 places and put it down on a piece of scrap cardboard, and that way it anchors it down for you to spray paint, and then you just pop it off when you're done, until you're ready to assemble it for your final piece. So I'm really liking how this one turned out with the cupcake liners. So also purchased on Amazon because it's the cheapest way. For us up in Alaska, we buy a lot on Amazon, which is why I had a lot of cardboard boxes to build out these coral rock structures that you'll be seeing soon. And I'm loving how this is looking out. If it weren't for COVID and the downtime I have at home, I wouldn't have been able to create the structures that I'm building for the future VBS. It's actually going to be really neat. I hope the kids love it as much as I know the adults will. So the last one I have to show for you today is something I kind of made on a whim, is these sea stars. Now these are just made out of paper plates and hot glue, and it's great because that gives them a lot of flexibility. So no matter how my rocks turn out, I'll be able to glue them on, and they'll be able to really kind of look like they're gripping the rocks because I can contour them to those edges. The way I did that was I took a small plate. You can do various size paper plates. You could probably do a large paper plate too to kind of give different size stars. But on the back side, I drew a basic star. You don't have to be fancy with it. You just have to give yourself a rough direction. Don't think too much about it. And that'll give you your points. So draw your points of your 4 corners on where that, because these sea stars are not having to be perfect at all. And then draw your points of where the center is. You want them to be kind of fat in the middle. You don't want them to be sharp. So kind of stick them further out, these points, for the center. And then that gives you a general rough idea on where to cut for your scissors. These do not have to be an exact star. You don't have to be perfectionistic about this. And then when you get toward the end, just round your edges out when you do your cuts, and then follow through. And then once you do those cuts, which I'll just do one edge right here real quick. Kind of made this one kind of fat. Once you end up cutting your star out, you're going to kind of round it out with your fingers, kind of give that contour 3D-like shape for the edge. And once you do that for the entire star, you're going to set your hot glue gun to hot and let it cook there for a second. Get really hot before you squirt it in the center. And as you can see here on these stars, I have these bubbles in the center here that kind of gave that texture. It's because I waited till it got really hot, and then I squirted it as much as I could before it got to the point where the glue wasn't melting, and that bubbled up and created a nice little texture that I liked on the star. And then I spray painted them pink, and then I did a light overspray of a light pink or a light beige. I don't remember exactly what it was, but just to create a little speckling. And I really am liking how these like sea stars came out. So yeah, something I just thought up on a whim. Most of these ideas I have pulled off of Pinterest to see if they would work. I haven't done these before, trying to find out what works and what doesn't. And I've been enjoying that journey. 2 service announcements. One is, on top of saving cardboard boxes for the next 2 to 3 weeks, also save small boxes, your food boxes. It could be your Ziploc bag boxes. Any little boxes, save, because these will add contour shapes to your rocks. So create a pile, and instead of recycling, start saving your boxes. This will be great later on down the road once you start that up. And also in the next video I'll show how to make sponges out of plastic bottles. So start saving these plastic bottles up, including bottles all the way down to your little vitamin plastic bottles. They'll be great for different shapes and sizes, to how to do kind of like a sea sponge look with bottles, foil, and hot glue. They look really great, and I am looking forward to showing you how to make those as well. So that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoy some of these tips and tricks for these sea creatures, and if you have any ideas or suggestions, I'd love to hear them as I'm doing this setup for VBS. Have a great day. Bye.